Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where and when you are I was going to say on the planet, but these days I'm not quite so sure where or what we live in. So whenever you're catching this video, we wish you a good day. This is episode 2 of a new series called Anchoring in the Sky. And my name is Alyson, Noune, and I am joined by my good friend, Joe Gifford. Joe, I was thinking, I do not think we've ever spoken directly about this seemingly small thing, but I feel like it's actually kind of an important thing. So for me, from like day one, when I took my journey public almost 10 years ago, I just naturally always time, date, and location stamped all my work because there was just something, everything is about energy, and the energy of the now moment is unique. And I think everything has meaning. So locations and times, and it all has meaning. And then it's left up to us to weave the stories and the meaning together. But I don't know that we've ever spoken about that. But with that said, I'd like to begin by setting just sort of the tone of the moment now that we're both in as we set this recording. So I am presently at this moment in Sarasota, Florida, which is the eastern coast of the United States. And it is 5:42 in the evening on Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. And when and where are you?
Well, this is an interesting creation because I'm in Wollongong, and it is on the south coast of New South Wales, and I'm across the road from my old Catholic girls' high school. And how I came to be here is one of those interesting experiences. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I actually stopped to speak to one of the teachers who was greeting the children, the girls entering school yesterday. And I just started to talk to him about my time here. And I just started to cry. Wow. And that took me by surprise. So there's obviously some healing that's taking place in this 3-week visit to the gong, as we called it. So yes, so it's 7:44 in the morning on Friday, the 24th of June. And I've just got back in from a beautiful walk along the beach.
Oh my gosh. When you told me of that synchronicity that you were going to be at a home right across from where you went to high school, I mean, it just was, there's no way that's an accident. I mean, right directly across the street. And when is the last time that you've been there?
Oh, it'd have to be 30 years. It'd have to be really a lot of years. And, my time in this school was sort of bittersweet because in the first 4 years, I was really picked on and bullied. And something happened, and I say this, and I think part of what's popping into my head is when it's a reminder that what can happen when you change your mind about something, when you step into a new part of you or a new belief system or a new way of being. Because for the first 4 years, I was gawky and on the outer and picked on, and even my gymnastics teacher called me Bucky Beaver because I had braces on. But at a certain point, I made this decision to stand up to this one particular girl that always bullied me. And we called these girls, I mean, it's funny how we have all this jargon, but they were the heavies. We called them the heavies, the ones that were bullying. And I knew I had to stand up to this girl, and I did. And I did it with words, and like I didn't attack, I just spoke to her and told her that I understood that she was, you know, like suffering in her head, really. I didn't tell her that she was terrible or awful, but I just said I understood. Anyway, it was almost like a new me walked out of that classroom that day, because the last 2 years of schooling, I really came into my own. I was confident. I ended up having a beautiful big group of friends that I hung out with all the time. I became friends with some of the teachers. So that one decision to stand up for myself, to speak out, to not be on the receiving end as victim, but to stand up, just changed the entire last 2 years of my high schooling. And so I think when that it is a reminder that it's important to make a choice, make a decision, step out and step up when you're faced with stuff within your life, and that the whole world unfolds differently in front of you. And I saw it. And I think that coming back here reminded me of that, really, that one of the first experiences I've ever had of that powerful choice, moment of choice.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, and I'm eager to see how your time there unfolds and just what other energies come to the surface from that experience. But that's a pretty powerful first one to kind of set the tone. Incredibly powerful, actually. I mean, that I can't imagine a more positive memory and message that applies directly to your present day world as well. So that's fantastic. That's
Well,
fantastic.
what was interesting too was that girl that bullied me, I met her in a pub a few years later, and she remembered me, and she said, I always remembered you. I knew you would be successful. I knew you would make your mark on the world. And she was really complimentary. And I was blown away, because obviously the reason she picked on me, she felt insecure about herself. And she'd always sort of looked at me as this really, you know, someone to be admired. And it never occurred to me as a kid that that's what she felt. And that too was another one of those moments where I realized that what somebody is projecting towards you is really about them.
Right, right. Wow, that's great. What a good start. What a good start to your time there. Yeah, that's fantastic, man. So I don't know how your week has been since our last recording, but wow, what I have had just there are so many places to sort of jump in and to try to begin to share and take the conversation. But I don't know, I feel compelled to first just I'm just sort of giddy about what we're doing. You know, like it's so seemingly small and minor and you know, just chatting, taking something we've been doing for the past year and just taking it
Yeah.
up one little notch. But yet I love it's so exponential. And I feel like what I've experienced more than anything this week is sort of what I've always sensed, which is where we're going. It's no longer necessarily the case where bigger is better. You know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with big things and big business and all anything that's big or more or greater. But what I have felt is just this little step with just little me and little you know, and our relatively small channels as compared to some of the people that we both have watched over the past couple of years. It has just felt exponential to me. And, you know, and I love the title that we decided because there's so much power in the paradox of what I feel the title represents, anchoring in the sky. Like, and it's purposely vast and it's loose because we don't really want to constrict this and define it and put it in a box. we wanted to capture the energy of what we're trying to do in our sharing. And I just it's been such a powerful week of creation of it, and then a reflection upon it, and then just feeling the joy in doing this. And again, it's not like we're doing anything, out of this world, but in some sense we are doing something out of this world.
When you and I have talked about the morphogenetic field, about the 100th monkey. So you and I are bouncing energies off each other, bouncing concepts. And I have an understanding and an epiphany, and I send the energy back to you, and it adds to your energy and it comes back. So anybody that's on our wavelength is picking up and understanding, whether they understand it here or not, but we are adding to the consciousness of the whole. And every single person is doing that, big or small. And that's I actually I want to forget really that we're recording. I just want to continue to have our chats.
Yeah, exactly. And that was sort of the first, like, strange, for the first 24 or 48 hours, I found myself again slipping into more of that human ego personality aspect, which isn't necessarily bad, but like it was a level of, because releasing it on your channel, so being exposed to subscribers to you who weren't familiar with me, and just sort of, again, as I mentioned in that last episode, I'm very sensitive. And so if I'm not careful to be like, okay, I'm not going to be, affected, I want to keep even keeled. People, don't care if people don't like or like. But it was sort of an adjustment that first like 24, 48 hours to, again, not get wrapped up in any aspect of the more, for lack of a better way of saying it, the more human aspect of it, and to stay just in the energy, and to remind myself what I know to be true is, if it just helps you and I, if just you and I leave the conversation feeling higher, that is all that matters. And anything else is just icing on the cake, cherry on top. But I was surprised that I, again, allowed myself to sort of slip into that. And then I get really judgmental of myself, and I have to pull that back and just, work through any of the uncomfortable that is exposing, just being more exposed to new people and putting yourself out there.
Well, it's just like life. You are, whatever comes to you is something to understand and observe, and to move through onto the next adventure, onto the next interaction. So in the hour that we talk, we are in a little mini section of our evolutionary path, because we are, as I said, this energy is going backwards and forwards. And so it's just building and building within our own beings as we are talking. And that energy and that progress, or that understanding and wisdom, is sort of going out into that morphogenetic field.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for people that are from my, like, sort of my network, or my smaller subscriber base, who may not be familiar with you or the light language, do you think you can explain a little bit about what you just slipped into it just a little bit right there, but what is light language, if you were to explain it to somebody who's completely unfamiliar with it?
Oh, okay. Light language is from a place that is where we are going, essentially. So we have been existing in this world, this 3D world, and we have been existing in this realm. So just this just listen and feel the energy. Utia bakotaya chat sikunget sionge tamakatia chotsa. Ozokuya timia takoya chat sako otia chat sa atka otia bakotoya taka. Izitia chuka ashoshiad saka mbandia tia chuka otia na makatadiatika. Ezutia chat kata asutia unge miataka. Izitia shajoyatako umbotea chat sako otia se itika umbotuko kata. Is it chick unget stes a tuka itchet unget unget chapatsaki itchet ungamandiatakakika. So the light language can come from a different couple of places, but mostly who is coming through is aspects of me who live in different nows. So we know that the reincarnation happens on this planet, but we've also lived many lives in other dimensions and frequencies and levels of evolution, I suppose. Now, a lot of us that are here, the light workers that are here on the planet, are actually more evolved and decided to come in and incarnate into these forms to help with this transition. So you and I, and probably everybody that's listening to this, is actually from a more advanced place. Now, when I say higher or advanced, I don't want it to sound like that's better than here. These, I mean, we get into this is the polarity of the world, but who is speaking through me has been where we are now and understands the struggles, understands the challenges, and knows that what I say through the light language will circumvent the ego, will circumvent the image, will circumvent our but, yes, but, or our confusion or our doubt. So the energy of the light language is very pure. The words, the tones are very direct and not wishy-washy and conditional. So when the words come through, there are words in it, but there's also tones and frequencies which get embedded into your energy system, which get assimilated only if you want it. Like if it doesn't resonate, that's fine. You can turn it off, go and look at something else. But most people, if it resonates, you know it. It feels like a warm hug. It feels like something amazing. So there is actually a longer video that I did, and we'll pop a link to that underneath this one. It's a little bit of a longer topic, and but anyway, it is of benefit to us. It comes from the star nations. It can come from the beings of inner earth. It's just, and whoever is watching, and if you are interested in what you are hearing, it is for you. There's no accidents. If it resonates, it is definitely for you. And you don't need to understand it with your logical mind. It's a language of the heart. It's frequencies and tones that resonate with that deeper aspect of who we are. But that's just a quick description. And you'll know if you're watching it, if it's for you, because it will resonate within your being.
Of course, of course. Yeah, it's interesting. As you were speaking, what came to me, I had a very beautiful synchronistic reconnection with someone, a woman today, just a couple of hours ago, in fact. And as you were speaking about describing a little bit about what the light language, mostly from where it comes, it reminded me of what she was speaking about with regards to how she brings in this, I mean, we can call it anchoring in the sky, where we're trying to be. We're trying to actually, when we say anchoring in the sky, we're actually trying to anchor into that realm, that reality, that version of existence of which you speak, and from where the light language comes. and the Ringa, she was speaking about more empathically feeling it and bringing it in that way. And then with me, I've seen, it's weird because I feel it, but I also feel as if I've seen it, like with my eyes, like I've been there, I've seen it, I've been there, and the frequency of it, and all that we're trying to do with our intentions with this little series of ours is to take all of these different angles, if you will, of bringing that reality. It's really of sharing it, the frequency, through all these ways to help us rise into it. It's not about bringing, it's confusing, right? Because the words can be so tricky. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's beautiful because we really do each have a role to play. I mean, we really are, each of us, a unique piece in the puzzle right now. And every single human being that, for whom this makes sense, for whom this vibrates within them, we all have a very special, important role to play. And the only way we know that is to just not be fearful of what and how that role is intended to play out through us.
Yeah, and just to trust in the process. And as I think we said this last week, that there is a divine guidance in all of this. It's a funny balance, or how there is a higher guidance, but we are still then unfolding new experiences, new things that come to us each week. But there is still that higher guidance that happens.
Oh, without a doubt. And I really think the map, if you will, the navigation map of that is shown to us through synchronicity. I mean, synchronicity
Absolutely.
is how the divine, the universe, source, the light, God, whatever you call it, that greater reality, it shows us in the non-accidental, it's not a coincidence when we cross paths. It's not accident when things happen, when certain things happen at a specific time, when certain people cross our path. It's all synchronicity, and it's happening all the time. And I would say it's definitely a skill to recognize, to train yourself to recognize it, but not only to recognize it, but to build into your life a way to, what I call, is explore it, take advantage of it. I mean, sometimes maybe it's just a passing at the grocery store where you have a wonderful conversation with the person in line behind you, brief, but you really have a connection in that 30 seconds or in that minute. And maybe there's not intended to be something more in that circumstance, but there are many circumstances that it's like it just invites you to explore. This is happening for a reason. And I think that that's kind of where, like, when we talk about work and what work is and what does that look like, I just think we need to continue to work to co-create with one another, more space in our lives to have time to be able to give to an unplanned meeting, to an unplanned occurrence. And I don't know about you, but my previous life to my awakening was so overscheduled. I never had time for anything. I didn't have time for life, which is why I was always a hot mess. I was so, because I enjoy being busy. I enjoy work. I love different groups and different people and playing with different energies, but I had no room. And what made it more challenging for me is I have understood the power of synchronicity from a very young age. I read the Celestine Prophecy in high school. And in the whole, that book, the very first one has these things they call the 9 insights. And the very first one is about synchronicity. I read it my junior year, arguably my first spiritual book. And that concept has never left me since. So, like, being aware of it, but then not knowing how to structure my life, if you will, in a way that allows room for it. That's where all the magic happens.
Well, there's another book too I would recommend if people haven't read it, is Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, because he talks with God. He writes and hears in his mind, and God says to him that I am the words of a song. You know, that everything is, I mean, if this is all an illusion, on some level it is, it's just showing you, it's a mirror for your internal state, then everything that you are creating is communicating with you. And that higher aspect of us is communicating. And so in that book, when I first read that book, and I read that, I don't know, sometime in my 30s, it was really profound because it sort of stated that everything is talking to you.
Yes.
Everything is, can give you knowledge and information if you are aware of that whole process of synchronicity, of everything showing you something that you need to know. It's to encourage you, it's to urge you on. Everything can be that, and you just have to, as the Celestine prophecy says, you have to start being aware. It's like you've got to put out your spidey sense and start feeling and observing, instead of knee-jerk reacting, as we've talked about before, to external stimulus. We are taking a pause and feeling into the reality.
And that is a perfect segue into what I was going to share next. When I have found, and this has been a relatively new thing to experience, I mean, really, like I'd say just in the past couple of years, is when you cross paths with somebody who's also aware of sort of the things that we're aware of, and as we say generally, that's on the journey as well. And they too are familiar with synchronicity and its importance. And there's a mutual recognition of this is not accidental. And so I haven't yet experienced a ton. I don't know that I have many examples where we take that even further, right? Like meet again or try to say like, why are our paths crossing? But in that moment, I have had multiple times in the past like year where both parties, myself and the other one, we just know it's magic. Like we know that God is right there with us, if you will. That spirit is like right there with us. And it doesn't even really, I tend to be a little bit I'm a very heady person. I come from a very academic background and a very heady person. I also have a very big heart, but I tend to try to overthink and control. And I don't mean to control it, but I have to work a little bit to like, let it just play out and don't force it. And I'm getting better. So really, you know, you don't have to meet. If it's intended to go further, it will happen. But in the meantime, when there's that mutual recognition of where both parties just know, and it's like, and then you're right there with spirit, with God, with universe, with source, knowingly, it's hard not to describe it in any other way but magical.
Oh yeah, the phrase, and I've said this before, that this is a symphony. What we are, an analogy of what we are going through is a symphony, and each of us is contributing a note or a, whatever it is, you know, a little piece of that symphony, and that whole thing ends up being absolutely beautiful. And that, you know, the piccolos come in at the perfect time, the drums come in, or the timpani come in at the perfect time and then leave. And so there's a beauty and a synchronicity of all of our contributions to this journey.
Oh yeah, I've always said, I've used the same analogy multiple times, and I've said it as like I've when you play a C note, for example, on a piano, a C note through a piano sounds very different than a C note through a bassoon, than a
Mm,
C note through a clarinet or a saxophone. And when I think of that analogy, which I think of often, it's not regulated, to just the instruments that we know. It's like 8 billion plus, or we're all a unique instrument.
yes.
And those
Mm,
notes that come through it, and it's the harmonization, and it really is playing as if we are as different as a piccolo and a bassoon and a French horn. And
mm,
it really is imagining that metaphor when I'm interacting with people. It's a constant way
mm,
of how I'm constantly working to harmonize. It's almost like you have to tune your own instrument. If you're having a jam session with a band, I'm more familiar with this like in pickup basketball or a pickup sports game. Although I played some instruments, I dream of actually jamming in a band. And I've watched, my brothers are both great musicians. But before you go joining the rest of the group, you tune your instrument first. You get your instrument tuned, and then you join others who have tuned their instruments, and
mm,
then you make music, and then you harmonize,
mm.
and then you
That's
co-create
it.
as you go. And that's how I see the entire our
Mm,
entire reality. Like, that's our
mm.
job, is to tune and
And
harmonize.
and when and when we join in, we get better tuned
Yes,
by feeling and hearing
yes,
others' tunes and vice versa.
yes,
And one of the things that's interesting to do is to feel in to the symphony as a whole, but also perceiving the individual notes. This is one of the anchoring yourselves in the sky concepts or exercises or understandings, because when we are anchored in the sky, we perceive the individual notes. We can and pick out an individual note or a group of notes.
yes,
And when we are, so there might be somebody in the symphony who's very adept or very skilled at their whatever they're playing, and you might not be so much in that area. You might be skilled in another area, but when you are in that symphony, you can tap in to that person, that frequency, those notes, and gain the wisdom of that person's experience, that person's skills, all of that. So when you're in the sky, so when we're here, we're all like focused on ourselves and reacting and looking at comparing ourselves, etc., etc. But when you anchor yourself in the sky, you are in a way in the big picture aspect of observing the symphony, and you can pick out various aspects of it and learn and entrain. So the word is entrainment. So when you don't know a certain piece of the tune isn't known to you, or you are having trouble picking it up, somebody else within the symphony has that knowledge, has that experience. And when you feel in, like I can do it right now. Iotaki ende nongen dambe teozena. Aye, aye, toyambutea. So you can feel all of the energies weaving in and out. And that practice is part of throwing your anchor into the sky.
oh, it's beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. It's the more we lessen, and it's not easy because we've been conditioned in the way of looking at what you just explained. When somebody has a skill set that we don't, or we have a skill set that somebody else doesn't, we've been conditioned in this competitive hierarchy of, and it just limits the possibilities. It limits the music. If we follow the metaphor, it really limits it. Whereas where we're going, when you go up in the sky there, you don't see this as better than or less than. The person that has the note that you aren't yet able to reach, and the person that isn't able to reach the notes that you have, it becomes this cooperative, co-creative, non-threatening, cacophony of exchange, where there isn't this battle. It's a battle, the world we've been conditioned into, as opposed to this plane of the energy, and allowing ourselves to teach and be taught, like without identifying it, and recognizing we are all teachers and students, all of us, because no matter where we are, with whatever skill set you want to plug in, there's always another being that's going to be more adept and more skilled. And there's always going to be multiple beings that aren't yet as skilled and trained. And it's when we lose this competitive, and I was a competitive athlete, like I know the energy of competition very, very well. But I also played team sports, which I would argue is, again, I try not to use that phrase because I don't want to argue with anybody, but it's so conditioned. It's a beautiful balance of energy, I felt, because the competition aspect was there. As teams, we wanted to win, right? I mean, that was the whole purpose of playing the games if you're doing it in an organized aspect. But as a team player, it was entirely cooperative. There was no better. Every player on that team had a role. And even the ones that we call were the bench players, who may not have gotten all the time in the actual game, they were just as important as the star players, because they often would play the best players in practice and prepare the star players for the real deal, for the game. And I was so fortunate because I had fantastic coaches in my youth and all the way through high school, where that was so understood. I felt like it was a beautiful balance of the competition and the cooperation. But I really do believe that there's going to be a whole heck of a lot more cooperation energies going forward, and moving away from this competition. But that is a very deeply entrenched, conditioned pattern of energy in mass, and by virtue in almost every one of us on some place on that spectrum individually. We all have that competitive nature in some way because it's been conditioned in us. So it takes just awareness to break away from that.
It starts in primary school,
yes,
where you get graded, for your stuff. So it is, you are absolutely right. It's a part, it's been braided into society, that comparison and competition. But you use the sporting analogy. Well, I think of things like the choir, when you sing together, and that you're listening for the other people's parts. They're coming in and going out, and you are adding your part, and it is all woven together. And when I watch, there's a YouTube channel called Choir, and they're in Canada, and they get 1,000 people together in an auditorium and teach them within a few hours to sing a song. And I tell you, the chills, the energy of them harmonizing, to me, is sort of where what unity is like. And the other thing there's two other things that I've had a look at that sort of remind me of this as well. What do they call it? River dance, which is that Irish dance group.
Yep, I'm familiar.
When they dance together and do the tap dancing and stuff, and they are harmonized, again, it just somehow gives me real sort of chills energetically, because they are individuals, but yet they're tapped into the movements and the everything to do with the other people in the troupe. It is just, I don't know why, I can watch it. I can watch the river dance stuff over and over again. It somehow is uplifting because of that unity aspect. And the last one I'll mention is there's a group, and they started in Italy, and they were wanting to bring the Foo Fighters to Italy to play.
I know what you're
and
talking
they had 1,000. They had the drummers.
Oh
my God! There's something about I don't know how many drummers were in that, but they've done a series of concerts and stuff, and they have people singing, they have people on the guitar, but something about all the drummers. I can feel the chills now.
So can I. Oh my God!
If if people want to maybe watch a couple of those, it just might give you an idea of what we're talking about with the symphony. Some of this might be a new concept to certain people and haven't felt what that symphony really feels like, because creation is a symphony.
Yes. Source
is the note that runs through every piece of creation.
Yes. Yes. And that, boy, again, another perfect segue. It's so amazing. It's so amazing. That sort of brings me, how to say this. So I have literally spent the past 10 years working to bring all that we just shared in the metaphor of the music, in the metaphor of the sports, in the metaphor of the choir. What does that look like when we're living our lives? Like in something that's a little bit more, maybe not as powerful and potent, but is. It just isn't as obvious to hear or see. What does it look like when we begin to live our lives in this harmonious way, where our lives are these gigantic art projects, are these gigantic musical pieces that are organic and constantly evolving and changing. And we constantly have new instruments coming in and out, or new teammates coming in and out, but it's a completely different way of engaging in the world than the paradigm. Completely different. Like completely different. And I literally have focused on this for 10 years in creating a world. And one of the many ways, and I've played with a lot of ways to try to explain this, or really it's not even explaining it, it's showing it with my own life. And I had this series I played with, I only made it through 2, like it's out there, called Stories of Synchronicity, where I began to take a real life synchronicity and then playing with this connection and the energy, and then taking it into like a hypothetical story. Like, what could we do with this in our current scenarios? And I wanted, this is what came to mind after our first video. And it turns out it's somebody that was familiar with your work. He's been somebody involved in following your work on your Facebook page for a while. And I didn't know who he was. And all of us, he made a comment on our video, but it was on and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. And, how did he stumble upon? I was just curious. And then.
And actually, hey, Jeff. Hi, yes. Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. Because, and this is amazing, because we're going to like weave him in. I hope he doesn't mind, but like weaving in what his actions were this week that were like harmoniously So he ended up viewing quite a few of my older videos, like going way back. And even the videos that he chose were so not accidental to me. And like it was so wild to then feel, again, it's all the frequency. It's not about ego. And it could be challenging to others to hear, to think that it's not about ego. It's not like, oh, he's watching my videos and commenting. No, he's connecting to the energy coming through me in these various recordings captured. And then that connects our energies. And now we're beginning to play, like now he's a part of the story. And
a part of the symphony.
And he's a part of the symphony. He's a part of it right now. And I'm just going to read you the titles of the 4 videos that he watched and made a comment on, because even just the titles have energy to play with. So he commented on these 4. One titled Making Choices, which you talked about earlier when you were talking about making that choice to stand up for yourself as a youngster in high school to get your power back. He clicked on one and commented and watched one called Stranger Than Fiction. And I could go off a little bit more on that, but I'll let the title stand. He watched one called The Vision, which is literally the very first piece I ever did, and literally represents the vision of the sky version of reality that I've seen since I was a little girl. So he watched that one and was drawn to that. And then he wrote and watched one called Following Your Dream. And I'm just like, oh my God, out of like 470 videos, these are the 4 that he watched. And just the synchronicity of the energies in those, it's just been magical. It's just been magical, because like I said, it's not about the validation per se. It's about the connection at this high frequency that I've been working to try to put out there and communicate for 10 years. And and he is part of our little orchestra right now.
I wanted to get you to talk about your Ripple project as well. Are you open to talking about that?
Yes.
Because that's about the symphony, isn't it, Ripple, in a way?
Yes. Ooh, gosh, succinct. This is a tough one to be succinct with. Essentially, the project that I now call Ripple 2020, it's had many iterations of, this is what I refer to as my 4th iteration, going all the way back to how I started my company of me. I started my company of me not by asking for investment from others like most businesses start. I started very consciously and very purposely by paying it forward, a not so small amount of money that I didn't have in the form that we know it. I did it using 0%, like I used the tools of our world. I had this vision and I leapt like Alyson leaps. The character of Alyson has always been a little bit of a big personality, a lot of energy. And I was in my naive stage. So I really didn't know what I was exactly getting into, but yet I also knew to my depths of the truth of what was guiding me. And essentially, it was working to manifest a way, a model that could be applied for anybody and everybody of work. But again, meeting the world where it is, but very purposely wanting to just barely connect in this paradigm, because where we're going really couldn't be more different. But you can't, people have to be able, you have to at least speak some sort of language, if you will, of where people are at, so that they can connect and go higher to this new realm. Ripple 2020 is essentially just, it's an idea of giving a springboard for energy and opportunity for people to follow their heart and their passions, and to be able to give themselves a playing field of taking where they think they are, like where they are right now, what they assess their skill sets to be, and having an opportunity. And this will not really do it justice. This will not make it entirely clear, but in a nutshell, it's just about doing business differently. It's about investing differently. It's about working together. It's about redefining what we call work. And really, like I said, it's challenging because it is, I've never seen in this dimension what I see so clearly in my mind's eye. So it's been very challenging to bring it to something and to bring voice to it. And what I've realized is I had to live it. I had to first live it in my life. And it's taken every bit of these past 10 years. And I know to what degree I've been living this, and I've got the pieces, but it's going to take buy-in, if you will, by others to see it. And the whole idea is to present this vision to raise a huge amount of money where my little company of me is just a conduit, and it's simply $1 buy-in. Like it's like take a
$1.
Well, it was $1 until PayPal upped its transaction charge to 55 cents. So it was like, because we're forced to use these middle companies, whether it's Zelle or PayPal or Venmo. I would love to get to the point where people can just send me dollars, but it's unbelievable to what degree from day one, my own family shunned me with this idea when it was in its first iteration. They literally thought I was insane, like literally thought I was insane when I gave away the money I gave away. And it was, I knew how crazy it was going to look, but I also knew that I needed to establish from day one, moment one, this is not same old, same old. And I started that. I believe in money moving in a completely different way. The energy of having to pay back somebody is very, very, very different than paying it forward. And, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. There is a website. It's like 60% done. And for those, I have had people look at it that immediately resonate. So I know that there's enough of it there for those that are ready. And I do think its time is coming. But Joe, you're one of the few that knows when I took that leap of faith, I seriously thought I was going to only take 1 year and I was going to have this magical orchestra playing. And we're 10 years later, and it has been hell in a lot of cases to hold on to that vision and to keep because I know what guided me has not changed. That has not faltered. I have never doubted and I have never regretted. As crazy as it looked, the mountain of debt that I was in, that I had to climb out of when nothing went right with the first iteration. And this most recent version is me trying to apply all the lessons I've learned in 10 years, being much wiser, but not losing the heart energy that's guiding it all.
Yeah. Well, look, what I had in one of my recent videos this week, I talked about the fact that we are integrating this higher aspect of ourselves, because in some now we have ascended, we have evolved, we exist in this higher frequency. And what is happening is all of these higher aspects are becoming merged with the best of who we are in the here and now. And the reason this is happening is we've cleared a lot of the heavy stuff from here, and our frequency is rising and able to meet this higher aspect. Your concept of paying it forward as your primary MO of this concept is here, and we are rising. And so now it is becoming viable, or there is a connection between where we are and the vision that you have, that the primary MO of this concept is you pay it forward straight away, sort of thing, rather than waiting and all of this other stuff. Before you pay it forward, you pay it forward first. I think that's what you're talking about, isn't it? So it's a different way of how the most of society works.
Yes.
You know, banking system, finances, loans, interest rates, that's not here.
No.
And your concept is somehow to be here.
And ultimately, it's just a recognition that by helping you, I am helping me. You know,
yes.
Helping you is helping me. Like, I want you to be thriving and loving every moment of your life. And I don't care how you do what, it's up to you to define that. And every single individual, we waste so much energy judging what brings somebody else joy. And if we just recognize it, we are all truly in this together. And when somebody else thrives, then there's space for you to thrive. It's this mutually beneficial. And it's almost like, to me, it's like, duh, like, but it has been astounding, the resistance that the idea, like I said, my family was silent when I sent out about 60 emails. I have a huge Irish Catholic family. Back when I first launched this, not a single one responded, even to have me try to explain. Now, granted, on the first iteration, but I was conscious of what I was doing. I knew how risky. I could have explained it at that point, what I was doing, and not my own family who knows my hard work and my intellect and my loyalty, all of these things. And I don't judge them for it. You know, it just told me, oh my God, we're in a lot worse shape collectively than I could have possibly imagined. I mean, that was the truth of it. Like, I didn't have any expectation that somebody, my own family, pay it forward. I just kind of naively believed, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that my own,
that they wouldn't even contemplate it or entertain it, or think about what it meant or the implications or the ramifications. They just didn't even.
To be fair, it was not nearly what I have grown into with the current iteration, but it was just the fact that they literally thought, my dad literally thought I needed to be committed. Like, I think they almost came down from Michigan. And I remember saying, this is how you raised me. Didn't Jesus, like, Jesus wouldn't have been all wrapped up in his bank account. Jesus gave, like, I couldn't reconcile it, because I'm like, okay, yes, you can say that I'm too trusting. I mean, listen, I definitely was naive and a little, it could be said that I was unwise, but I wasn't unaware of what I was doing. To this day, I maintain and I stand behind the choice that I made and how I did it, because I needed to show that my little legal business of me was truly different. From the ground floor, I needed to be an example of what I wished the world was, and what I, in some sense, knew the world already was in a different now moment. And I needed, but it just, nobody ever even asked me to try to explain. And that's when I knew, I knew it was going to be a lot longer than a year. And I really, to be honest, I wasn't prepared for it to be more, like, I wasn't prepared for that. But they'll say, you're always, God gives you what you're ready for. Like, I made the choice and I didn't go back on myself, but man, oh man, there was a lot of growing and a lot of lessons and a lot of healing that was to come. But that is why I'm very, even though it hasn't taken off, even though it's been 2 years since I really thought it was going to launch, I'm confident, I am confident in it.
Time will come. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's quite yet, but it's the concept behind it, the energy, the intent is on its way.
Yeah.
And it may keep changing. It
That's
may
right.
go into another iteration,
That's
but
right.
it's really the project itself is really secondary to
That's
the
right.
energy
That's
of
right.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%. That even if the work even if that website goes dead and nothing's ever done, and the time and the money and the energy on it, it is so okay, because it's just continuing to follow the energy, which, like I said, is definitely my heart. It's something bigger than me, but I follow it through my heart. And you know what I just noticed? We're over an hour already.
I was just going to say, it's probably when we're done with this, we'll wind up.
Yes.
I have a little puppy to take for a walk.
Yes. And I think, I think that's a great way to sort of conclude it, to sort of anchoring in the sky, that sky reality, that higher realm. And the path is through our passion, through our love, through our hearts. Our minds serve our hearts. It's not like the mind, there's no place for it. It's just its turn in the driver's seat is done. The mind is moving to navigation, and the heart is what connects us. I think, I sense, to that sky that we're anchoring to.
Okie doke, what a fantastic way to finish this little chat. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. Leave us a comment, and if there's anything you want us to talk about, that to bring up, let us know, and we'll add it as a topic for one of our future chats.
100%. We thank you again, and tune in again next week. And thank you for all of you who tuned in today. We much appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.